Welcome to the first episode of OPITO's new products podcast, The Products Pod, where we'll dive into the latest product launches, explore innovations we are developing into our products, and unpack the global demand driving change in the energy sector. I'm your host today, Daniel Stephen, Modern Apprenticeship Programme Manager here at OPITO, and here I'm with...
Ewen, Director of Products and Services.
And...
Hi, I'm Lucie, Product Development Manager.
Fantastic, and thank you both very much for joining me today. So I guess if we start with the recent product launches we've had, can you both sort of talk us through a little bit about the standout products OPITO launched in 2024 and sort of explain what drove each of these developments? So we start with you, Lucie.
Yeah, so I think the first one that we should probably touch on is our SOMO product. So that's our safe offshore marine operations, offshore installation and energy structure safety zone, just a bit of a mouthful. So this came to us from the HSE and other regulators because there was a real challenge around the number of incidents involving collisions within that 500 metre zone. It wasn't just the number of collisions was going up, it was also the severity of those as well. So Step Change in Safety and the Marine Safety Forum, they joined up to create a document that was called a Marine Operations Guide for the 500 metre zone. It was created and launched almost as an industry best practice. So what happened was when that document was launched, it became apparent that there wasn't marine responsible personnel who were suitably skilled and trained within the workplace. So where OPITO came in is we worked really closely with the Marine Safety Forum to develop a minimum training standard that ensures that marine safety personnel, they have the knowledge and skills that they require within the workplace.
It's probably also worth mentioning our recent launch of our Open Learning Hydrogen programme as well, Daniel. OPITO's had an open learning suite of products for many years, but the recent energy transition agenda has really driven us to add additional content to that suite of products, mainly to support new entrants into the industry, to support people that are reskilling or increasing their knowledge around the hydrogen sector, and either as part of a current move into hydrogen or as part of a prospective move from a career perspective. So we launched the Hydrogen Open Learning Programme early in 2024. It's a programme that's designed to be completed at the learner's own pace, so they can undertake a unit, they can study that unit in their own time, and then when they're ready to complete the examination, they can contact OPITO and complete that examination and then be awarded a recognisable certificate at the end. So that's been really popular. It supports the transition agenda, and it enables people to build that context of other sectors into their already skilled experience and qualifications that they currently hold.
And you mentioned it, that obviously it's been very popular, I guess, of all the releases we've had in 2024. How have they been received across the industry?
The feedback, Lucie touched upon the SOMO product that we launched, that's been received extremely positively across the industry. Many operating companies are using that program for people that are obviously directly involved with the safety zones, but also for other employees that maybe aren't directly involved but need to have an awareness and knowledge of the factors and hazards associated with safety zones. So there's been a significant amount of promotion for that program, and the feedback that we've received as an organisation has been universally positive. In terms of our hydrogen open learning, we've got learners from all over the world that embark upon these programs. So that tells us that there's that international relevance. So that feedback is obviously really important for us to ensure that what we've put on the market is fit for purpose, it meets employers' needs, it meets learners' needs, and that helps to inform us in terms of our future product development activity.
Oh, that sounds really good. So I guess when we look at the products that we've launched, Lucie, if we come back to you, what do you believe what product do you believe has the greatest potential to reshape global industry standards, and why?
In my perspective, it would be SOMO, because we were facing the incidents increasing and the severity of them. So we have brought in something to mitigate against that. When you're speaking about the move towards the global energy transition, it would need to be the hydrogen open learning, because it's the first step of a journey. We also did launch last year a helicopter administrator workplace competence assessment. So this is out of CAP 437, made an amendment a number of years ago now, and they introduced the Appendix K, which dictates the training and competence requirements for heli admins within the workplace. So last year we developed a product to assess the candidate's knowledge and skills whilst they're in the workplace undertaking the role, making sure that they can manage helicopter movements safely. This product complements our already extensive HeliDeck framework. So our HeliDeck framework, it covers everything from initial training through to your team member, through to your team leader, through to your helicopter refueling and your helicopter administration. It's a full framework, and that was really the last product that we needed to support it. So it was another really good addition to our portfolio. So I would say those three: SOMO, hydrogen open learning, and heli workplace competence assessment.
I think they're all important. OPITO develops products based on industry need. Employers value OPITO standards and qualifications. In terms of their applicability across borders and around the world. For me, I think the work that we're doing with our stakeholders in terms of supporting them into a broader energy transition world is really important. As I said, stakeholders value that OPITO certification, and if where we can support them to train or assess their employees in different parts of the energy sector is really important. And it really builds on that heritage and track record that OPITO's built up over the last 50 years.
Excellent. And I guess, so we've talked a lot about 2024, and we've mentioned SOMO, we've mentioned open learning, and we've mentioned the HeliDeck admin as three really important launches that we did in 2024. But what's on the horizon for 2025?
Okay, so there is a number of products coming in the next 12 months at least. So we're looking at things such as behavioural safety. We need to take our time and consider if behavioural safety is going to be something that we have as a standalone product, because it actually should be embedded within the majority of our portfolio. We've got the hydrogen qualification framework that we'll touch on in more detail in a following podcast. We're looking into an energy storage qualification. We're looking to develop a train the trainer initial training standard for our network of approved centres and any organisations that wish to utilise that. We want to build that into a framework, so we want to have a build on vocational qualification that allow learners to achieve a formal qualification at the end. We're looking at offshore gangway operators and a full framework there.
Obviously, we have that new sustainability standard launching. What gaps in the industry does that address, and why is now the right time to launch that?
I think it's absolutely the right time to launch our sustainability standard. All our stakeholders around the world are embarking upon an energy transition journey. Depending upon fiscal policy or natural resources in different parts of the world, that's happening at different pace, using different technologies. But that general additional understanding of hydrogen, carbon capture, solar and wind, I think adds to the existing skill set and the transferable skills that our global workforce currently have.
And how does the new sustainability standard align with the organisation's broader missions and values?
I think it absolutely aligns with OPITO's strategy. We want to be the skills and standards body of choice for safety critical industries. Clearly, those industries are safety critical in terms of the nature of the work that is carried out. So I think it's a good fit with OPITO's heritage and our existing product suite. And hopefully, employers and learners find it valuable as they broaden and diversify in their own career journeys.
Excellent. Lucie, if we come back to you, because you mentioned this slightly earlier, obviously the shoulder breadth measurement standard has recently moved under the OPITO umbrella from step change and safety. What's the significance of that transition for both OPITO and our end users?
Okay, so it's the full process that's moved from step change to OPITO, and with it becoming over to OPITO that we have created 2 new products. One of them being Train the Measurer for shoulder breadth measurement, the other one's from a learner perspective, and that's shoulder breadth measurement learner. The importance is that it becomes a formal industry standard when it comes over to OPITO. It means that we become the custodians of that product. We'll take over the training through our network of approved providers. We'll complete the registration and certification. We'll undertake the quality assurance globally, and we'll ensure the ongoing maintenance of that product. Once it's in the OPITO portfolio, it falls into our 4-yearly formal review cycle.
And I think it fits really well with our existing suites, particularly around our basic safety and survival programs, but also our comprehensive helideck suite of training and assessment standards that we've already got in place. It started off very much as a UK initiative, the shoulder measurement, but there are more and more basins that are actually incorporating shoulder measurement as part of their onboarding of personnel into the industry. So I do see this as something that becomes more universal over time, and we're seeing signs of that already.
Does that, I guess from my own knowledge more than anything, does that make it easier for our centres to manage as well, because they're able to then just deal with us for the shoulder measurements and Boseites and FOTs and things like that, rather than multiple different stakeholders?
I think that's one of the advantages and one of the drivers in terms of making the shoulder measurement standard and OPITO standard. In the existing centres that are delivering the shoulder measurement, many of those are already OPITO centres that are delivering Boseite and FOT programs and other programs that learners embark upon as part of general onboarding before they go offshore. So it makes sense to complete all those programs in the same visit to the centre, to have single awarding body certification, and to capture all that information and Vantage so that it can be accessed and tracked by employers.
Yeah. Excellent. And I guess for the listeners of the podcast, why was the shoulder breadth measurement standard created in the first place, and what critical safety issues does it help resolve?
So there is a regulatory basis when it comes to shoulder breadth measurement. So there's a number of different directives, such as the CAP directives, but there's others out there. They mandate the compatibility between a passenger's size and the emergency exit access on different aircrafts, because there isn't just one fit for all. You're an XBR, so an extra broad personnel, who's identified as that. So their shoulder width would exceed typical parameters for standard helicopter seating. So what the shoulder breadth measurement does, it ensures that those individuals are not disadvantaged and that they need to be placed in a position that will allow them safe egress if there was to be an emergency requirement. So they'll typically be placed next to wider escape windows.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Lucie. I think that kind of gives people a bit more of an insight into exactly why originally it was put in place and why it's so important as well. If we move on to one of the other products that we launched, the T-Hewitt with Sea Survival, can one of you explain why it was introduced and the significance of the T-Hewitt with Sea Survival?
Yeah, so it was introduced to allow easier application from new centres in emerging markets that we're working in. So, such as the like of the work that we've been doing in South America and Brazil and other regions, where the temps is already covered through other training that exists. So it's not required or necessary when it comes to the individual completing your traditional THUIT. The value of this for individuals is it removes unnecessary and duplication of training for the learners.
And I think it's just another example of our mission, which is to introduce globally recognized standards that have regional relevance. And this is a good example of that. It's using existing training programs that are being used around the world by employers and modifying them so that they have that regional relevance, but still hold that global applicability and transferability.
No, that's really good to hear. So I guess we've heard from a few products now, but looking ahead, how will these new standards sort of impact training providers, operators, and the industry at large? If we start with you, Ewan.
Yeah, well, hopefully it allows our centres to be able to offer additional OPITO programs to the market. They've got relevance and buy-in from our employers and stakeholders. So from that perspective, it's a natural evolution, I think, of the OPITO product suite into, in many cases, into broader energy, or enabling that movement from traditional energy industries into the broader energy industry as a whole, but also really to enable learners to work across different sectors simultaneously, which I think is something that's going to become more and more prevalent in the energy industry over the next 10 to 15 years.
What about yourself, Lucie? What impact do you think these new standards will have on training providers, operators, and the industry?
So I think like one of my favourite things about my current role, but also our product portfolio in general, is that our products, they don't just positively impact one part of the industry. It's all of us, the regulators, the operators, employers, the training establishments, all coming together to ensure that learners are trained and competent. It also ensures that they can carry out their roles safely in the workplace, and it achieves OPITO's mission of those individuals going to work, come home safely.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I guess if we move on to the next part of the sort of podcast and the questions, and we'll start to look at sort of the international focus of OPITO and our products. We obviously serve a global audience here at OPITO. We're not just UK based, we've got centres across the world. How transferable are all our products across different regions and regulatory requirements and environments?
My personal view is that the vast majority, if not nearly all of our products, have got relevance across borders, Daniel. That's really part of our ethos when we develop products from the outset, is to make sure that they have that global relevance, whilst taking into account any regional differences, particularly around legislation, which obviously changes from country to country. But that's a core part of our ethos and our product development activity, is to look at global solutions with regional relevance rather than develop a product for one specific country. Or and that's something that we're always conscious of, is that it's a global industry. The challenges that employers and learners have in one country are quite often the same as they have in other parts of the world. So it's preeminent in our thinking when we develop a new product, is to make sure that we get feedback from stakeholders around the world in terms of their challenges, and wherever possible, we capture those different challenges within one product, so that our employers around the world can gain the advantages of using that product for their activities and their workforce.
And I guess, Lucie, from your perspective as well, obviously having worked in the UK, now working in KL, do you see that international applicability more firsthand now, being based somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much value in individuals using the same standard no matter where they are in the world. I absolutely support Ewan's point that we can be creating products, we can protect the integrity of that products, but within that we can allow for local and national requirements to be covered.
And from an employer perspective, there's huge advantages in terms of using the same product in multiple regions. There's that consistency and understanding from an employer perspective. Everybody's being trained at the same level. If they move people from country to country, then that certification has value and recognition. So there are lots of effectiveness reasons for employers to choose OPITO standards across the world. And as I said earlier, that's preeminent in our thinking whenever we develop new products.
Excellent. What about examples? Do you guys have any examples of how we've adapted a product to meet specific needs of a different international market for one of our products?
Yeah, I can come in here if you want.
Perfect.
So, did a piece of work with the Americas, in particular the Gulf of Mexico. What was born out of that? It was helideck operations initial training Americas, and also a helideck operations emergency response and fuel management awareness. Okay, so although CAP 437 and AJAC are widely adopted as guidance within the region, there was not one agreed standard that was ready for implementation, and they did seem to have regional specific requirements for HLOs who would also be undertaking very brief emergency response and refueling duties. Their key differences when it was in Americas was around the legislation and the regulatory requirements. There was some key operational differences around the ETA times, so I think it was 20 minutes and 5 minutes. Their use of terminology changes for safe and unsafe landing communications, and the assessment within that region was very much a team assessment opposed to an individual. The long-term aspiration, even with the Americas piece of work, is to create standardised helideck training in the Gulf of Mexico, and the ultimate goal would be to have them to adopt our helideck framework as it is today.
I think that's a really good example, Lucie. I think there's another couple of recent examples as well. One is our recent launch of our T Hewitt with initial sea survival, which protects the integrity of the Hewitt program and allows that to still be transferable, but captures that a regional variance. And also some work we've done recently in terms of reviewing IMIST, or International Minimum Industry Safety Training Program, to ensure that it's applicable for both onshore and offshore operation.
Yeah, it's really good to hear. And I think, like you mentioned, you both mentioned, Julie, it's about how do we create products that are applicable globally and create efficiencies, and we're not got 10 different products for 10 different areas where we don't need them. So I think that those sort of examples really highlight that, which is good.
And that's one of the benefits of how OPITO is structured. We've got regional offices around the world. We've got strategic partnership teams that engage on a daily basis with our stakeholders in terms of what their challenges and needs are. That information comes through, regionally into one place within our product development team, so we can capture that feedback, and that shapes our thinking when we're reviewing existing products, but also, as I said earlier, when we develop new products as well.
And how do you, when obviously we receive that feedback, how does that then impact the products? How do we shape that when you get that feedback, Lucie, from the industry? How do you then shape that into reviewing products?
So, not so much reviewing, but building a new product. Can give you an example of a decarbonisation training certificate that I've been working on. This is a programme that was created by Petronas and INSTEP. They came to us as OPITO because they wanted to have it accredited and as a formal qualification. The programs itself was developed to support them with their energy transition. So it covers a technical understanding on the application of the main decarbonisation levers. It covers your greenhouse gas accounting and forecasting. It covers carbon pricing and project economics. It also has the fundamentals of project management within it. We took that program as it existed. We then worked with a variety of key stakeholders in the region to develop the training certificate. This expanded on some of maybe the key points that were before that were specific to an individual organisation, where this could be taken and learnings could be applied to multiple different organisations. The value of that for Petronas, for Inset, for OPITO is that it will be a credit rated qualification and it's going to appear on the Scottish Credit Qualification Framework. What that then means is it's comparable to other countries' qualification frameworks. So such as we'll be able to do a direct comparison to the Malaysian qualification framework here. When it comes to reviews, we receive a number of feedback areas. As you can imagine, sometimes we get conflicting views from different departments. Sometimes we get conflicting views from training providers versus operators versus employers. So our role is really to gather and analyse that. And when it's appropriate, we get together a suitable group of SMEs to look at the feedback in more detail and to take balanced measures based on it. We won't rush in and make a change to a product. We need to check and make sure that it is something the industry is satisfied with, and they'll be happy for us to reflect it in our product portfolio.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key value propositions. We can receive feedback on a potential change from a specific organisation in a particular region. But I think taking the time to do that due diligence, to understand the impact of that change, that initially the purpose of that change may well be advantageous to a particular region, but on analysis, sometimes that can be detrimental to other regions and other parts of the world. So taking that time to do that due diligence, to understand the impact of a change globally, helps us to maintain the integrity of our products, and also make sure that products remain globally recognised, but as well as being regionally applicable as well.
I guess it goes to show as well that how collaborative we are as an organisation. We don't make those changes just ourselves. It's about involving industry and making sure that what we're creating or changing or updating is fit for purpose for the industry that it's supposed to serve.
Absolutely.
Really good. So a question for you both. In your view, what does true global alignment look like for a training standard? We start with you, Ewen.
Yeah, for me, building on what we said previously, I think, for a standard to be truly globally relevant, it needs to be built initially by feedback that we've received from around the world. There needs to be a need for it. There needs to be input from stakeholders around the world. Employers, are able to use that standard for their operations regardless of which country they're working in. And more, regardless of which sector they're working in. So that they can demonstrate to their workforce that they have a consistent level of training that's the same for all of their workers, regardless of where they work in the world, and they can actually achieve the efficiencies and effectiveness of what that brings in terms of minimum standards, moving people from one country to another country, or one asset to another asset, or undertaking projects across different parts of the energy sector. For me, that's the value of a truly global standard, is it's used universally by employers around the world, and they can use that for their operations regardless of which country or which sector that they're working in.
Lucie, have you got anything you'd like to add to that?
I'm pretty much going to say the same thing as you, and I think just in a slightly different way. Just products that allow for local and national adaptations whilst they maintain the integrity of the globally recognised product.
Excellent.
And that to me is what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, I guess I'd just like to thank you both for your time today. It's been really interesting, certainly for somebody who's not necessarily involved so much in all of the products that we have. It's been really interesting from my perspective as well. For everybody listening, thank you for joining the first episode of OPITO's Products Pod. Be sure to tune in for the next episode where we discuss OPITO's products role in the energy transition. If you have any feedback or requests for future episodes, then just let us know. Thanks for listening.